Welcome back to the best weight loss podcast in the world. Today, you only get one of your tall, dark, and handsome hosts. It's Danny Mabley, the fatty daddy himself. But I got the other OG, original fatty daddy in the house with me today. Tony, what's up, man?
Yeah, what's up, dude? How's it going?
It's good. It's good. It's great to have
Dude,
you
your
on.
setup looks so crispy. I look like I'm reporting live from a potato.
It is all good.
And
It is all good in the hood.
yeah, what are we gonna do? Sorry.
Honestly, man, just happy to have you on. Had a few requests, from back in our podcasting days. A lot has changed since then. But today we got a fun one for you folks. We're gonna be chatting a little bit about like weight loss and parenting. We both are dads, but we both have very different lives. But I've also lived the typical, be there all the time life that you currently have. But I'm also a single dad now, so that, isn't full time. So I think there's a lot we can kind of go through and just have people relate with, because weight loss gets a bit more difficult when you add a family and being a parent dynamic into it. And I think that people just expect, that's of course part of life, and it is for sure. But there's just some logistics where if you're not in that space, like it can be difficult. So this is all about, building a community that people can relate with. And as always, this isn't to be a place for you to make excuses or anything, but it's a place to be able to relate to someone and try and work on what you can to be the best version of you for not only yourself, but for your family as well. And so I thought having Tony on, nobody better to chat with. So just,
Love it.
this
I'm
is
ready.
a new community. Maybe not everyone knows you here. So just start off a bit about your story because it's super cool, and kind of then just lead up to where you're at now. And I'll kind of interject minimally along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, thank you for having me on, man. When you were like, oh, you were requested guest, I was like, what? Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I used to be 406 pounds. I've always been obese my entire life. Um, Gained a lot of weight in college. Like I said, I've always been overweight, but in college specifically, it really kind of got crazy. Because it was finally like off on my own, living on my own, no one to like hide my food addiction from, and I could really just kind of go crazy into food and my binge eating. Um, and so yeah, I ballooned up to 406 pounds, and I just kind of lived that way for a long time, or just kind of like survived that way for a long time. There wasn't much living happening. And then I had made a few attempts at weight loss, as you do. I've always done the typical yo-yo diet. I've done the typical like, oh, I'm gonna do this fad of diet. It's gonna like help, or I'm gonna do that fad of diet. It's gonna help, and nothing ever panned out. And it was always like I'd always end up gaining the weight back. And what really changed is when I became a father and my son was born. He's 6 years old now, but when my son was born, that really like flipped a switch in me. And I just decided, I was like, okay, by the time it took me a little while even after he was born, to be honest. It was 100 days before he turned 1 year old. And I was like, in the next 100 days before he turns one, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. Like that was like, I have to at least get started and kickstart this weight loss journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. And, I actually lost 60 pounds during that time. And then since then have ran Spartan races and ran a 5K and then a 10K and then a half marathon and then a full marathon. And, have kept most of the weight off. I've had a second kid, and up to this point now I've gained back. Technically, I've lost 120 pounds, but then I gained back 50. So I am now on the grind and on the hunt to get those 50 pounds back off of me, and working towards another marathon and getting even more weight off. But that's kind of where I'm at now. So it's been a lot of ups and downs, but we're still, regardless, the goal is still losing weight, being healthy, being there for my kids, and running another marathon next year. So that's the main goal right now.
Awesome, man. Love it. I mean, yeah, our stories are very similar, and it's been awesome to call you a friend, online friend this long. Met a few times in person finally after talking for so long, and
Yeah.
but yeah, like what I've always thought that was awesome about you as well is like there isn't a ton of people in this space that are transparent, and even though I know it's difficult for you because we've had conversations about it, you're a bit more critical on yourself than I am on myself. But I've always respected that even though it's like difficult, you've always been like, yeah, well, it is what it is, and I'm gonna fucking keep working. And I've always been inspired to push myself a little bit harder, and I'm in an area of life now where, although I'm using a GLP-1, I'm focusing a lot on like mindset and like my identity. And like I moved to a new job out here in the East Coast because the person I'm working for is going to push me to be better. Like this week alone, I'm working and listening to Jocko's extreme ownership because, not just in for the business aspect or work, but like for me, like I want to take extreme ownership of my health and my life. And so yeah, I've always been inspired by how much you are just always like showing up, no matter how good that journey goes or whatever. But you're constantly there, just like kind of I've been. And so, with that being said, like with this, what was when you had your first child? Obviously, that's a point of like, okay, whoa, life's different now. What was it? Was it like getting, for me, I noticed things like when she first started like playing around, like, oh, keeping up is tough. Like, were there certain things you
Yeah.
noticed that you were like fed up with, or what was that like?
I mean, yeah, like I had always had sleep apnea. I was pre-diabetic. I had a string of like health problems where I was like, okay, this is not good long term. And in the short term also, like I can barely walk around the block with the family. And when we want to go on family walks or bending down to like help him put his shoes on, it's like, this is a struggle. And then I also like really had this fear of like going to pick him up from school one day and him like being around his friends and me pulling up and walking over and him being made fun of because of how fat his dad was. That like was a scene that just like played in my head all the time, and I was like, oh no, dude, like I can't be the fatty daddy. I can't do that. Like I don't. I want to be an example to not only my son but my daughter now as well. I want to be an example to them in every sense of the word. It's like from how I treat others, how I treat family, how I treat friends, and how I treat myself.
Mhm.
And so I knew I was not being a good example with what I was currently doing. Like I was fat, I was morbidly obese, and I was killing myself slowly. And it's like, that's not a good example. And that's not a life that I would ever want my kids to live. So I knew like if I wanted to be that example, I had to like put my money where my mouth is rather than food where my mouth was.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, like
Stupid.
it's
But
funny,
yeah.
like every time I mention the fatty daddy thing, like I do get a few comments or DMs that are like, dude, like you have to stop calling yourself that. And like I get it, like because my boss, like I have it on my license plate. My boss is like, dude, you gotta take that off because that's not who you are no more.
Bro, you have Fatty Daddy on your license plate. Hey, it's crazy.
It
Okay?
was fun.
That's insane that you have. There is literally no bigger of a red flag. I mean, you're single now. Okay? If you roll up to a date and you
Dude, they
got
love it.
Fatty
They love it,
Daddy,
bro.
bro, it might as well say Pussy Wagon. Like, that's insane. You like, what are you doing? You roll out with a fucking gold chain and Fatty Daddy on your license plate, they're gonna be like, I'll take an Uber. Thanks. What are you doing?
It seemed like a fun idea at the time, bro. And it does get a lot of laughs and people reading
Oh
it and being
yeah.
like nice. But yeah, I definitely am at a
Yeah.
place where like I like it because it's a funny word on word. But I do get it because it's like I said, my boss has heavily gotten me into like the identity thing. And like I really don't believe it is me. It's more so now like an extension of like who I used to be in a way. But it's just
Right.
funny. But
It is. I mean, it is funny,
there definitely will be a
but
day
definitely,
where
like
it
for
leaves.
sure, change the license plate. It's funny. It's funny for a podcast. Let's keep it off the car.
I remember when I said that to you, you were like, bro, you didn't.
And you certainly did. You
It
certainly
seemed
did.
like the right thing, but
Oh man, dude, that's
I
so
do have to get a
funny.
new license plate for the East Coast now, so I will be changing it soon for sure.
That's right. Yeah, you moved.
Yeah. But anyways, back to um so with kids, like, yeah, for me, like, I even the biggest noticeable thing for me, like, because I wasn't actually at my highest when she was born. I was actually like close to near my lowest, like health, not lowest, but like a 250, 225 weight. And then after I started to gain and gain kind of from there. And I noticed like so basically when she was able to run around and play, that's when I was at my heaviest. So I was like, damn. When she was a baby, I was
Yeah.
good. But like we just went to Disneyland recently and we went last year as well for her birthday. We try and go every year. Last year I legit had to take stock. I mean, this, like we recently did a walk together about 5 months ago or so. I would need to stop like every 5-10 minutes. And now this year, and even since like me and you have hung out, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have pain in my back and I don't have pain
That's
that
awesome.
stops me from keep going. Like I 15,000 steps in Disneyland. The next day I went to a Creed concert with Three Doors Down and Finger 11 and all these great
Did you
divorced
lose
dad
a
rock
bet,
bands.
or you lost a bet and you had to go to that, or
It
like
was a great
what?
time. Okay. Shush.
I love
John,
Creed. I love Creed. I love the joke on Creed. I love Creed.
yeah, I think Obese to Beast calls it butt rock. I call it divorced dad rock and it fits.
It's divorced
Um,
dad rock.
if you look it up on
Too
site,
close to home.
yeah.
Too close to home. Too real. Too real.
But yeah, so went to that, got another 15,000 steps in, and then we ended up going to the San Diego Zoo, actually with John as well, the next day. So like literally within 3 days, I was walking 10 to 15K a day, and never had to take a break. Other than at the end of the day of Creed, I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down. Fuck this, because it was like a 8 hour day. It was a lot of bands. It was a
Yeah.
good time. But yeah, just like so noticing stuff like that, like I can keep up with her more. She doesn't see dad like sitting down all the time, or like there'd be
That's
points
so
too where I'd have
great.
to sit down and she would like pull on my arm, like, come on, let's play. And I'm like, I'm trying,
Oh,
man. Like,
oh, dude, that's the worst, bro. That is absolutely the worst.
yeah.
I mean, even now, since gaining 50 pounds back, I Ryder would want to do something, and like I mean, he's 6 years old, so he's like a full blown like psychopath. He has got energy. He's got energy like I've never seen before. Um, And when he wants to do stuff, and I've had like a really long day, and I'm like, oh, dude, I just want to sit down so bad. But and I think like, dude, if I was still 400 pounds, there's no freaking way I'd be able to go do something, or like go have the energy, or go like even just be in a happy mood to like make believe and play pretend with him. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
so much more than even just the physical side of things. It's like the mental state that it takes to be a parent, and
Absolutely.
like I mean, like literally today, before he was going to bed, it started raining, and he wanted to run out in the rain, and like jump around and start singing in the rain. Like literally started singing in the rain. And I was like, dude, if like, I was like, okay, let's do this. I'm exhausted. Let's do this. It's fine. Let's start singing in the rain. And it was good. But like, if I was still in my previous self, I wouldn't even have the mental capacity to do that, let alone the physical capacity to do that.
Yeah. So, despite being a parent, like, what were that 100 days? That's something you've done kind of for a while now. What was it that kind of flipped the switch, and what did you do to like lose that initial weight?
So the flipping of the switch was just like, it was a lot of self-talk. I've always been a big self-motivator and a self-talker. I don't know, that doesn't sound right, but I was a self-talker. I would talk to myself. I would literally like look myself in the mirror and have tough conversations with myself. And that sounds crazy, because it is, and it looks crazy. But it's like when you get to a point when you're like that desperate, it's like, let's start talking to ourselves. And so I would just look at myself in the mirror, and I'd take my shirt off and I'd look at myself like, listen, dude, look at, look, look at yourself. Like really look at yourself. Look at what you're doing. This is not good. This is not healthy. This is not like, it's so much more than aesthetics. Like obviously everyone wants to look good, but it's so much deeper than aesthetics. And it is like, you are literally fucking killing yourself. And if you can't make a change, how do you ever expect your kids to follow in your footsteps, to respect you, to lead a healthy lifestyle? If you can't show them what a healthy lifestyle looks like,
Yeah.
how do you expect your kids to see that? So it was just like I just had to do it. I also read. I love that you're reading Extreme Ownership. I love Extreme Ownership. But the book that really changed my life is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Now, like everyone
I
says
have a
that.
copy of that.
Oh,
I
you
haven't
haven't
read
read
it
it
yet.
yet?
No, I do have a copy of it though.
It's almost so good. Like stop reading Jocko Willink and start reading David Goggins. But I won't say that because respect to Jocko. I love Jocko. But that, like, David Goggins' book changed my life. And as soon as I was done reading it, I looked at the calendar and it was exactly 100 days. Like if I had started the next day, it was exactly 100 days. So I texted my wife and I said, hey, tomorrow I'm starting 100 days. I'm losing 50 pounds. I need to be held accountable. This is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. I just need your support on this. And then by the time I had gotten home, she had written down, basically took my text message, written it down on note cards and posted it on our wall in our bedroom. And that
Wow.
helped a lot too. Like, and that, having that support is like so lucky to have her and to have her support. So, that's how it started. And
You
to
carried
lose
the
it,
boats.
honestly, I'm sorry.
You carried the boats.
We carried the boats.
Who's
We
gonna
carried
carry
the
the boats?
boats. Goggins is back on the log. Um, you really got to read that book, dude. It's insane.
I will. I
Shout
will for
out,
sure.
shout out, Boat Crew too. I was gonna go down a rabbit hole, but to lose it, I basically took like no nonsense, no bullshit diets. Listen, there's a lot of diets out there, and I feel strongly about this. And sometimes I'm a little opinionated, and I'm a little harsh sometimes. And I will be honest. I'm a little harsh, but I just don't have time to waste with like fluff or like small talk or like that kind of shit. Like I feel how I feel. I've had my mind made up, and this is just how I feel about certain things. And so like with the diet, I was like, I'm not going to do any bullshit fad diets.
Mm-hmm.
Carnivore, keto, South Beach, Atkins. I've done it all, baby. I've done it all, and they're all bullshit. If you eat nutritious food, you eat in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally that simple. And that's what I did. I tracked literally every single thing that I ate. I tracked the creamer in my coffee. I tracked the meat, the rice. I basically, a very quick meal plan for those that are interested. I had oatmeal in the morning. I had like a protein oats or like overnight oats in the morning. I had chicken and broccoli for dinner. For lunch, I had chicken and broccoli or chicken and quinoa for dinner. And in between there, had a couple pieces of fruit and maybe a protein bar or a protein shake. And that was it. I just ate the same freaking thing. I was also working like 80 hours a week when I did this because I was working at an advertising agency,
Mm-hmm.
which was super taxing. I had a huge commute, so I didn't have the time or the comfort to be able to like, oh, let's make different meal plans every week. I didn't have that. I just had to eat the same thing every day because it was easier, and I like the goal was so important that I didn't care about what the food was. I just needed results, and so I ate the same thing every day. So,
Yeah.
and I also worked out vigorously 6 days a week, and that's what I did for 100 days.
Awesome, man. Um, what what has been the biggest struggle now with going from like that working to then, you go through the phase of regain and you're like, what the frick? And we've talked about it before, but where do you think you're at now and what you need to do?
It's kind of like the same thing, it's like parenthood is so hard. And it's easy to make that as an excuse. At the end of the day, it's like, I'm the one putting the food in my mouth. you know,
Yeah.
and it's never been a gym thing. I'm literally sitting in my garage gym right now. I have a gym 24 access. I'm the only member. And so it's like never been about like, oh, I don't have time to get to the gym, which is also a bullshit excuse. Everyone can make time for the gym. Um, but it's always been the food thing for me. It's always been the food thing. And it's never been the scary thing about this weight gain is like it hasn't been fast. It has been overnight. It hasn't been like, whoa, one day I just decided to like give up and go eat a bunch of, fast food. I don't even I mean, like I've gotten fast food with the family a couple times, but like it is so rare. It's not like that. It's slow, and it was. Oh, I made the kids grilled cheeses for dinner. They didn't finish it. Well, I'll just eat a couple pieces here.
Dude, that's
Oh,
so
they had
tough.
Cheez-Its for snacks. Oh, well, they didn't finish it. I'll have a couple cheeses. It's like that little bit of shit every single day over the course of 2 years. It adds up, and if you don't track that stuff, or if you don't like at least like be mindful of what you're doing, you're going to gain weight. And that's kind of how it's been. It's been sneaky, it's been slow, and it's taken effect. And it's a hard habit to break.
Hmm.
I also don't want to go back into like a really high deficit, because I don't think that's sustainable. So right now I'm in a pretty small deficit, um, just to like slowly lose the weight in a balanced way, in a sustainable way, and I have to like be okay with that. But I also have to have ownership of myself every day with the small choices that I'm making.
Yeah, the
When
nutrition
my
the nutrition thing with being a parent is like a whole new game because it's so easy to just be like, okay, I just won't have it in the house and I won't have it in front of me. And
yeah
those are two huge like biomechanical things that our body like reacts to. If you see food, like your hormone, like literally like your hormones go, hey, there's food there. You can eat it, you know? So like
no
you all of a sudden have had the success with so little temptation, especially when kids are babies too, because they're just eating like stuff that really isn't solid, or then they're just eating like pieces of chicken and avocado, and like really you can stay on track. But yeah, once
yeah
they get to that age where it's like all I want to eat is, and not saying that your kids are like this, and even Maple, her mother has done an amazing job with her nutrition, but there was of course that nugget mac and cheese phase, right?
hmm
And they never finish it, and it's just so easy to go and eat some, but that's something now so I spend a week with Maple out of every month. It's something I only have to spend a week of. So like it sucks. I would give anything for more, of course, but I noticed that I have that privilege of being able to have my own home for 3 weeks at a time and have only the things that I need to eat in it. Right. So that's helped a ton because yeah, it's definitely way more difficult as far as like if you're a person who struggles with food and you're like, oh well, I can just take the food away. That's just no longer an option. So then you're
no
working on a whole new set of like rules and temptations for yourself that it takes time. It's like with anything, like if you spent years fixing the other stuff, it's going to take years or however long to fix the new stuff. Not to say that we're both and you and are not working at it constantly, but it's tough, man, for sure.
it's tough. And thankfully I've been able to keep it at a 50-pound weight gain, and hasn't like I haven't spiraled, and it hasn't gone all the way back. Like I am proud of that, and it's hard to say I'm proud of anything when you have a weight gain,
Hmm.
but I am proud because in the past, if I would have stumbled a little bit, I would have stumbled all the way, and I would have just gone all the way back to 400 pounds, and it just is what it is. Now at least I've maintained some level of fitness. I've maintained a level of muscle. I've gained muscle this year, which I'm very happy with, but it's also like I know I could be doing better. I know that I make excuses. I know that I still am not that I'll ever be 100%, but I'm not even like 90% most weeks. And it's just like, God, man, if I just gotta like get it dialed in, and it's difficult, but yeah, having kids is a huge part of that. Because it's like schedules all over the place. At the end of the day, it's like, oh, you just want to you just want to be able to sit down and have a glass of wine with your wife, and turn on Netflix or something, and you know, and just like relax. But it's like, well, I didn't hit my step count, so I got to go get, and sometimes that just doesn't happen, you know?
Hmm.
So those days are getting less and less. And I would say for like the month, past like month and a half, I've been like much better, much more accountable, much more dialed in, and it's felt really good. So it's, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself, but I'm also like, okay, I need to keep this momentum going, and I
Yeah,
need to keep pushing because yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a year for sure.
for sure. One thing I think people don't talk about as much too with the whole like parenting thing, but also like jobs. Like you started a brand new, job at that similar time as well recently. And that I think it was I talked about this on a different episode, but I think it was Dr. Mike Israetel talked about like weight loss and stuff. And he was like, as people, like we all have willpower, but like to think that we all have the same amount of willpower for every aspect of our life is ridiculous. Like even he was like, it's just we're not built that way. Like we have a certain amount. And so when you're a parent and you're someone who works, like if those are all going great, that's where you're using your willpower. Like your willpower is
Yeah,
in being there for as a father, is killing it at work so that you can provide for your family. And then when you've done all of that, you have to then have more willpower to do the things that you need to do for yourself. And this applies not just to men, but to women as well, being mothers. Like your focus is everything else, especially when you're becoming a
yeah,
parent and with working or even just being a parent itself as like a full-time mother, that's a job in itself. And so doing that, like you then have to like stretch your willpower that much further to then actually work on yourself. Not to say that, like I said, that's the reason why you shouldn't do well, but just know that like if it's tough, yeah, it's supposed to be tough. Like this is a very difficult thing. But with that, like I don't know how much you've kept up with this podcast, but my co-host John Arpino, he's had surgery in the past, and then I've started since we talked last. I started GLP-1 back in April. Is Has something like that ever been on your mind yet, as far as that option, or are you just like never?
no, I'm kind of like never. Yeah, yeah. I got hit up from a company at some point, like a year or so ago. Yeah, it was like a year and a half ago, and it was like when, Ozempic was like really popping off and really starting, and like all the celebrities are like getting on it, and yeah, they offered to pay me an exorbitant amount of money to talk about it, and it's just not, you know, everyone has their own journeys.
Hmm.
And everyone has their own like what they want to do. That's just like never been something that I wanted to consider because it's always like scared me as an option because I just know how I am, and it's just not been something that I would want to do or consider. And if I'm gonna lose this weight, I want to do it because I decided I'm gonna fucking do it and I'm gonna keep it off. And that's just like I know it would just that's the way it's gonna work for me. But yeah, this company hit me up, and I remember like looking into it and seeing like the side effects, and then seeing like how new it all was, and just thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know. And again, like no shade to you or anyone else that has chosen that path. It's just not what I want to do, and not how I
Hmm.
want to lose the weight.
No, I mean,
Um,
I think a lot of people share that similar. And if you would have asked me, like me and John talked about it 6 months ago, and I was like, no, I really want to do this on my own. And I tried. Like I feel like like not only the last few years, but I gave myself like 2 months. I was like, okay, this is the 2 months. I'm gonna give it all in. I'm gonna make the choice. I'm gonna fricking do it. And then for like a week, then I fell off. Then I did another week, and I fell. And I was just like, dude, what? I'm almost 400 pounds. Like I was at a place where like my body was starting to like slow down. Like
hmm,
it was like it felt like almost life or death at that point. And so I was like, well, if I'm not going to do this on my own, like I don't want to not be around and just be the fat guy because I've not made the choice or not followed through. So for me at that time, it was like, all right, like let's try this out, see what works. And that was, now almost 40 pounds down since starting in April. So it definitely for me was fix something that I needed to stick with it. But I think there's a lot of people who can relate to like just being like, yeah, nah, I can do this. And I think, what we talk about too is like this podcast is about like if you can and want to do it naturally, like that's the first and should always be the first goal. Like
Yeah.
we always talk about surgery and GLP-1 as like the last ditch effort. Like
Yeah.
and for both of us, like John, he was at 500 plus pounds for majority of his life, gaining weight on medication, gaining weight, and was like, if I don't do interject with something, like this is it. And so
Yeah.
when you start to see that snowball roll down the hill, and then the end is everything you don't want, it's like it's interesting now that there's these options. I definitely know for myself, like I've luckily had very little side effects, but I know that like there's potential down the road. Like I don't know what's going to do long term, but like I made the choice. Like anything long term is probably going to be less bad than what it would be if I just keep down this path. And that's where I was at. But like I said, I totally respect your decision, and I know like mentally how you are. Like I do think out of the people that I know that could do it and do it, like you're one of them. And so
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's just I think it just turned me off, like the amount of money they were offering, and I was also like, I don't have that many followers, so like, why are you
yeah,
offering me money to
it's
talk
it's
about
a
this
big
drug?
it's a big
And I was just like,
money maker
yeah, I
right
think it
now.
just, yo, yeah, and I just
Yeah.
it just that turned me off, and I was just like, kind of like got the ick from that. I was like, no, I'm never doing that shit. So it's just that's I just haven't even considered it.
Hmm.
And if it takes me, you know, if on Ozempic I could have done it in 6 months, and instead it takes me 5 years, fucking, it takes me 5 years. I don't care. I know I'm on the journey. I know I'm working towards it. Whether I'm taking little tiny steps or whether I'm taking huge leaps, I'm I can still see the end goal, and I'm still like very focused on what I want to accomplish, and I'm gonna get there. I have no doubt about that. The hard part is like these little setbacks of stupid choices that I make throughout the week that are gonna slow that progress and slow that down. But I know I'm still on the path. So it's like if it takes me longer, it takes me longer. Um, but I've always kind of been that way. Like I don't even I don't even like taking Advil. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's like if hey, my head hurts. My mom was a nurse, and she's always like, "Oh, your head hurts. She's taking Advil." It's like, oh, maybe I just need to like drink some water and I'll be fine. Like why are pills and medication the first jump? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I get it, man. I get it. I like that hat, by the way. Where's that hat from?
Dude, thank you. This is from Melon. I know you. I feel
I've
like
had some melon before.
you've had
I'm
some
on
melons.
the Dad Gang company now though. Those things are the best, dude.
Those are nice looking hats.
They're great. They're great quality.
Hmm.
I have like 4 of
I've
them.
seen those. Yeah, I love Melon.
They're not sweat
And shout
proof
out
as
to
melon.
dude, Mel, I do. I could sweat in a melon. I mean, this hat I've had for a long time. This is actually a hat. It's for I don't honestly don't even know what that like covenant means, but it was a charity for the Nashville shooting,
Mm,
and I was like, oh, charity plus a nice hat. I'll buy it, So,
yeah,
yeah, it's I like it. Thank you. I
right
appreciate
on.
that.
Um, Let me know if you're cool with chatting about this, but you're still with BPN, right?
Oh yeah, of
Okay,
course.
cool. What's it been like with that new job, that new, team, being around those guys and girls and everyone? Like what's that been like as, a dad who's also, trying to lose weight? Like I know for me, like I've worked for like fitness companies in path, and I've always been that like bigger guy, a part of the team. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
something that like mentally, it was always on my mind. Like, oh, I gotta catch up. And even with my new job now, like I'm the biggest guy by far in my industry. And so for me, it's like it's always like a looming like they're gonna notice as I lose, and it's like it's gonna be that like I can take away that first impression of like, oh, this guy's probably not gonna like work as hard, because like if he could, then he would be
right.
healthier, blah blah blah.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah.
But it's reality, right?
Um,
Like,
for sure. I feel like, I mean, everyone at BPN has been like nothing but like extremely supportive, you know? I mean, I work with a group, like every single person there is working towards something. They're either
Hmm.
working towards their first half, their first marathon, their first 100 miler, like everyone's working towards something. So it is a very, motivating environment. And then, you know, obviously Nick, the founder and CEO, he's like the most inspiring person in the world. Like I found his videos when I was
Super
still,
athlete.
yeah, he's a freak, dude. He's a freaking machine. Um, yeah, I found Nick while I was on the elliptical when I was like 395 pounds. I had just started my journey. I found his videos in 2019 at some point, and I was just like hooked. You know, he was like training for his first Ironman or something, and I was like, oh my god, this dude is getting after it. Like, and then I just, you know, binged every single one of his videos.
Yep.
And you know, became an ambassador for BPN, and then became an athlete for BPN, and they came out and made a documentary about my marathon. And then when I moved to Texas, Nick found out I was in Texas, offered me a job, and I was like, yes, like immediately, yes. So it's been a dream. It's an incredible company to work for, and yeah, I mean, being surrounded by a bunch of like high achieving physical specimens could be, you know, intimidating for some people, but no one has ever made me feel less than, and no one has ever made me feel like even once like the fat guy. Everyone's always been super
That's
supportive.
awesome,
I mean,
man.
every week, like today, every Thursday at 3 o'clock, we stop work early and we all go work out together. Like
Yeah.
that's a dream. So like today, I worked out with Nick and the whole squad, and we're like cheering each other on. You know, one guy's trying to go for, you know, a high rep of unbroken, you know, ball wall squats or throws, whatever it's called. And it's like we're all cheering for him. It's just like, dude, it's a sick environment. So it's been a dream. I've been working there for 2 years now. I'm now the director of partnerships, and that's been awesome too, because now my whole job is centered around, you know, talking to and managing our athletes. And we have a bunch of incredible athletes on that roster. And so getting to interact with them daily has been also super, super motivating for me. So,
Yeah. List
you know,
your
coming from
favorite to
being,
least favorite. Come on, do it. Just
okay, here we
kidding.
go.
Just
So number one,
kidding.
um,
Or eat a spicy wing. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I'll eat all the spicy wings. Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, that's what's so sick. It's like they're all
Yeah.
so cool,
No,
and they're
that's
all
awesome,
so
man.
freaking supportive, man. It's wild. Like honestly, this is the dream. And I mean, like I tell, like, you know, I'm the second or third oldest person at the company. It's a super young company, so I tell them all the time, like, you guys, we are literally in the good old days. These are the golden years that you're going to talk about. Like,
Mhm.
I've never had a job that I like even remotely close enough, as much as I do BPN. Like, it's wild. So yeah, man, we're rocking and rolling. It's super busy, but I do love it, and it is been super motivating to be able to work around people like that.
Yeah. That's honestly amazing to hear. Like it just makes me, want to go buy some subs from them even more. Not sponsored, but
Yes, not sponsored. Go buy them.
but yeah, no, like, I started watching Nick because of shout out to Riley DeVoe, Black Dog Fitness back in the day. He introduced me to his content. This is when BPN still had the neon color packaging. He was selling
Oh
out of
yeah,
freaking Korea, like pretty much
dude.
because
He
he
was
was
literally
stationed.
he was literally stationed in South
Yeah.
Korea, and
And he would do vlogs
uh,
like in between his it's
yes, I
crazy,
mean the dude
crazy.
is a hustler. Like he
Yeah.
he he works. He works like no one else I've ever seen. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
literally ran 8 miles this morning. And I watched him have a crazy good workout today as well in the gym. So it's like he's doing 2 a days. He just had a baby. You want to talk about zero excuses? That guy. It's like I watch him and I'm like, okay, well, I need to freaking get my shit together
Yeah. That's
because,
like my
like,
boss too, man. Like he just machine. Like not physically, but work wise.
yeah,
He just like gets it done. Like, and a lot of people on my team are like that. So yeah, it's like similar vibe. It's like you are the people you surround yourself with. This is part of the reason I
Yes.
moved here, because I was like, I need to level up, and these people are going to force me to. Because if I don't, I'm going to get booted out, and that's just not going to be an option.
Yeah.
So, no, that's awesome. Like, yeah, and then from there, like when he was back in the day with one of the clothing companies, we met at the Arnold. Then we just ended up like going for dinner afterwards. Like every influencer I've ever met, like anyone who's just like, hey, I'm gonna go grab food. You want to grab food? Like to a random person. I was like a small
Yeah.
influencer at that time, and the fact that he just took that time and we hung out and haven't talked to him much since then. But just that enough was like, all right, you're a good dude. There's a lot of people in the
Yeah.
industry that put on a happy face and move on. And
Well,
do
dude, that's why I was so
things.
worried to start working for him. Like because you hear like, oh, don't meet your heroes, and Nick was absolutely one of my heroes. And so I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if I want to. Like, what if I work for you and you end up to be like the worst person ever? And I mean, thankfully, those fears were not realized. Like, he's just like, bro, he's so generous and like such a good leader. I don't know. I sound like I'm being paid to say this, but like it is freaking so sick. I fucking love BPN. I love Nick, and it's been an awesome 2 years.
That's awesome, man. Incredible. It's been awesome to have you on. If there was one thing, you'd like to tell the audience that are maybe parents, non-parents that are just like right now struggling with, or maybe at a similar point, anything last you'd like to kind of say to motivate people?
I would say that it's never too late to change. You're never too far gone. Even if you have lost a bunch of weight and you've gained it back and then some, who cares? Start again tomorrow. Like literally just start again. It's fine. Don't wallow in it and shake yourself off, pull yourself up and start again. Everyone falls down. Everyone makes mistakes. I've made a million mistakes. I ran a marathon and now I couldn't run half a marathon. I literally couldn't. So it is ups and downs this entire journey, but you have to stay on the journey and it's never too late to start again. So, just don't make any excuses. You can find time. It's worth it. Fucking get it done.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. Let's go crack some beers and talk about life.
Dude, I am drinking so much coffee, by the way. Speaking of
Yeah,
parenthood,
what are you doing? It's like
exhausted. Bro, I was, before we started this, I was sitting on the couch. I fell asleep. Meredith was like, hey, don't you have a podcast? I was like, oh my God, I need
hey,
coffee.
well, I thank you for taking your delicious time for me. I appreciate you, dude.
For you, anytime.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Dude. Anyways, to everyone listening, stay healthy, stay sweet, stay sexy, and we'll see you in the next one. Deuces.